Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Jamuna Tira Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Bhajanandana Yashodanandana Bhajanandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 all glories to somebody. All glories to we do this in English. Everybody, er der nogen, der ikke forstår engelsk? I fra 7. klasse, der var engelsk. Der var? Men det er heller ikke så svært, det jeg siger, tror jeg. Men den her, den er altså på engelsk her, så det bliver svært for mig at gøre andet. Mindre, så nu skal jeg have en dans, hvis vi skal holde det på dansk.
Det er okay for dem.
Jeg taler på engelsk. This will be in English, and this is from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. This book here, I don't know, do you know Bhagavad Gita, any of you? Were here for the first time? No. You know? No. It's a very old book from India, 5,000 years old, in which it is going on in the middle of, just before a war. The two people are speaking before Krishna and Arjuna, God and his. It's a little loud, I think, huh? We're gonna be beeping if we turn it too loud. So we start with reading some Sanskrit, and I will read the verse and also the commentary called the Purport by Srila Prabhupada, and then I will try and say something, and then maybe in the end if there's one or two questions. So first we will chant an invoking mantra, and you can all join in after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate. Sorry. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So when I was at home today, I thought about chapter 2, text 20. And I hope this will be okay also for our newcomers. This is the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 20. And I will read the Sanskrit for you, and then the translation in English. So the Sanskrit sounds like this. Something like this. Apoyamanam acharapatishtang samudramapa pravishanti yadavat tadavat kama yang pravishanti sarve sa shanti mapnoti nakamakami. And the translation: a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is never being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. And the purport by Srila Prabhupada: although the vast ocean is always filled with water, it is always, especially during the rainy season, being filled with much more water. But the ocean remains the same, steady. It is not agitated, nor does it cross beyond the limit of its brink. That is also true of the person fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one has the material body, the demands of the body for sense gratification will continue. The devotee, however, is not disturbed by such desires because of his fullness. A Krishna conscious man is not in need of anything, because the Lord fulfills all his material necessities. Therefore he is like the ocean, always full in himself. Desires may come to him like the waters of the rivers that flow into the ocean, but he is steady in his activities, and he is not even slightly disturbed by desires for sense gratification. That is the proof of a Krishna conscious man. One who has lost all inclinations for material sense gratification, although the desires are present. Because he remains satisfied in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he can remain steady like the ocean, and therefore enjoy full peace. Others, however, who want to fulfill desires even after the limit of liberation, or to speak of material success, never attain peace. The fruitive workers, the salvationists. Well, salvationist here does not mean the member of a Salvation Army. It means somebody who's striving for oneness with Brahman. And also the yogis, who are after mystic powers, are all unhappy because of unfulfilled desires. But the person in Krishna consciousness is happy in the service of the Lord, and he has no desires to be fulfilled. In fact, he does not even desire liberation from the so-called material bondage. The devotees of Krishna have no material desires, and therefore they are in perfect peace. I'll just repeat the verse again for you. Apuryamanam achalapatishtam samudramarpa pravishanti yadavat tadavat kama yang pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti nakamakami. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is never being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So, in this verse, it is described that it is possible to attain a state of consciousness where one is in peace with everything. In normal consciousness in this material world, we always want something. There's always something lacking in our lives. There's something wrong always that we need to achieve. And this is the nature of material life. The conditioned soul, who is a minute particle of God's consciousness, who is eternally a part of God and who is always with God, in reality always with God, but this little spark that we are, the soul that we are, little copy of, minute copy of God, also has the freedom to choose not to be with God and to go somewhere else. And those of us who choose not to be with God, we are here in this material world. So this material world, this earth, this cosmos, is a place created for the conditioned souls who did not want to enjoy the oneness of service to the Lord. And when the soul is with God and knows he's with God and serves God directly, then the soul is completely happy and peaceful, like a fish which is in the water, is in its right element. So the soul which is not with God, who is not serving God directly, and who's trying to satisfy his bodily needs outside of the service of God, is like a fish out of water trying to become happy. If you take a fish out of the water, no amount of luxury can make it happy. You can offer the fish a Rolls Royce, a color TV. It sounds so weird, a color TV. This is something we said back in the 70s. A color TV. A car or an iPad or membership of Facebook. But he will not be happy unless he goes back into the water. You see, even if he has 1 million or 1 billion friends on Facebook, he's still a fish, and he needs to be back in the water because out of the water he will die. It's as simple as that. So we are in a similar situation in this material world because we have left, for some reason or other, only God knows why, but for some reason or other we have chosen not to be in direct contact with the Lord. And therefore we are in this place, and therefore we always feel this want, like the fish out of water. You always feel, what's wrong? Everybody here is, doing this and that, so I will also do this and that. And then in the media we see, do this and you will be happy, and buy that and you will be satisfied, or do this and you will lose weight. All kinds of offerings we are following, that, all kinds of things offered to us. At the eye see and this and that, we become attracted, and nothing can satisfy us. Nothing. So this Krishna consciousness movement, the purpose of this Krishna consciousness movement is to bring all the fishes of the material world back into the water. All of us in this material world are like fishes trying to be happy out of the water, but Krishna consciousness means water. The water of Krishna consciousness in which we like to swim. So in order to be able to swim in the water of Krishna consciousness, one has to give up the attempt to try and become happy out of the water. Krishna consciousness is very easy, it's very natural. It's like when the fish jumps back into the water, it's no problem, it just swims around, he's happy. But since time immemorial we have been taught by other materially infected, conditioned souls that no, don't go into the water, you'll be brainwashed or something. It's too cold and it's too clean, you won't like it. You won't like the feeling of being so clean. Stay up here and be dirty and miserable together with all of the rest of us, and we can be miserable together. And we can complain about the government, complain about this and that, complain about politics, religion and economics like everybody else, and be miserable like everybody else. Don't go into the water. This is the propaganda you will hear from the media. The purpose of the media is to make religion look bad. If you notice, it's very clear. It's to make religion something very dangerous. This is the purpose of the media. And to destroy the families and the traditions and all kinds of knowledge that comes down through the generations, and be modern and be miserable like everybody else on Facebook. And your friendship and your action is going on in a little square pad like this 24 hours a day. This is the life we live now, we call this happiness. No, it is not happiness. It is complete misery. So Krishna consciousness means we have to give up this attempt to become happy in this material world and direct our vision towards something else. The example with the water and the fish is very good, because it's just a question, instead of going from the water, you turn your eyes and go back into the water, go back to Godhead, and they swim around in the waters of the spiritual world. But there is a price. What is that? Lord Chandas Thakur says. Vishaya. I can't remember. But the point is that if we want the taste of Krishna consciousness, we have to give up the lower taste. Now, yeah, but I was thinking about a song by Lord Chandas Thakur when he says, if one is attached to sense gratification, you cannot chant Hari Hari Bol like properly, but I don't remember the Bengali now. So, yeah, the price of Krishna consciousness is a little bit austerity, a little bit tapasya. In the Vedic literature, there's this word tapa or tapasya, which means to perform a little bit austerity. You know what austerity means? It's like when you don't go up in the morning to school when you don't want to. It's called austerity. Eskis, So everybody has to perform a little bit of austerity. In order to get an education, you have to rise in the morning when you don't want to. You have to go to school and you have to study. That is called austerity. A sacrifice, you could say. Make a sacrifice for attaining something higher. So Krishna consciousness means to understand the nature of the soul, or to understand that we are spirit, and to understand that we are part of a higher spirit called God, Krishna, Vishnu, Bhagwan, whatever, or Hare, God, anything, and to realize that we are part of God. So the austerity in Krishna consciousness, in the Krishna consciousness movement, we perform some austerity, by becoming convinced about this transcendental knowledge. Then you also become convinced that it is necessary with a little bit of sacrifice in order to become Krishna conscious. So you will see in this Krishna consciousness movement, we have 4 kinds of austerities that we follow. 4. We don't take any intoxication. We don't eat meat, fish or eggs. We don't gamble with our money. Bankospil, lotto, tips, we don't do. And we also don't, what's the last thing?
Illicit sex.
What?
Illicit sex.
No illicit sex. Oh. We don't do sex outside of marriage, huh? Very big austerity. But in so many other religions that's also a rule, but it's not so much followed. We try to follow. So these 4 austerities: no illicit sex, no intoxication, no eating of fish, meat or eggs, and no gambling. These are the 4 austerities we follow, and we rise early in the morning. Just like a student who wants to learn and go to university, sometimes you have to rise very early in the morning to attend the class. So here every morning we rise around 4 o'clock. So we go to bed a little early also, of course. But so not so big austerity. I mean, compared to so many other things, you have to be austere about education, so many things, sports. If you want to achieve some result in sports, you have to do so much austerity, so much sacrifice. And what do you achieve from all these things? Yeah, maybe some temporary fame, or maybe you achieve a prize or something and become famous for a few years. But then all that goes away again. And even if you get I'm not saying not to get an education, that is important in life. But if we receive a material education and learn how to become materially successful people, it will not help us to solve the problems of life when we die. When you're young, you don't think about dying, do you? But we're all going to die one day. We have these maybe 100 years or something to live at max. And in the human form of life, apart from the life of animals, it is important that we realize our spiritual nature. It is important that we educate ourselves in such a way that after death we will not go down into lower species, because the soul is eternal, it never dies. It is not that we only live this one time, we live forever. So this human body we have now as a boy or a girl or a man or a woman is only one out of unlimited numbers of incarnations that we have been through and will be through, unless we get out of this cycle of reincarnation and get back to our original home in the spiritual world with God. And so we in the Krishna Consciousness Movement, we recommend that instead of performing so much austerity to achieve material things, instead of doing that, we perform austerity to attain Krishna consciousness, which is an eternal asset. Now we are prepared to do many sacrifices for temporary things, but actually this is all useless. All these temporary things, we can achieve money, family, education, fame, and then die after 100 years. But then what have we achieved? If we don't achieve something that we can use after we die, then we really have achieved nothing at all, other than just another chance to take birth in another body. And then in the next body, the actions we perform in this life, we have to enjoy or suffer in the next life. Unless we do action for God, if all our actions have been done for God, they have no reactions that come back to us. It's just like if you have a big machine, and all the gears and parts of the machine, they act according to the function of machine, there's no disharmony in the machine. So in the same thing, if everybody within God's creation act according to God's will, there will be harmony and there will be no extraneous reaction to everybody's action. But here in the mature world, we are acting outside the will of God, and therefore we also have to take the reactions. If we act according to the will of God, there are no reactions, neither good nor bad. If we act independently, outside the order of God, then there is reaction, good or bad. Good reaction will lead to a good result. If you do good work in this time, or do pious, godly work, in the next life you can get a better body. Maybe even on a higher planet, on other parts of the universe. So that is karma, good or bad karma. But Krishna consciousness means to do actions which are not karma. They are not good karma and not bad karma. Krishna consciousness is not good karma. It is in one sense good karma because it's the best karma, because it's Krishna karma. But it is karma without any reaction of the material nature. There is no material reaction to Krishna conscious activity. By chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's no material reaction. The only reaction we feel is like this feeling of pleasure inside from this. I'm trying again. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. See, this is a spiritual sound. And spiritual sound has this effect of creating a spiritual consciousness within. So yeah, I think you could feel, when we chant this mantra, there's a sensation of pleasure or complete, actually ecstasy within the consciousness. So that is called action without reaction. We are acting without any reaction. Or if you, for example, reading these books is the same thing. There's neither no material enjoyment in these books, there's no material suffering in them, and there's nothing material at all. Everything in these books are going on the spiritual platform. So we recommend that everybody buy a copy, English or Danish or whatever, of the Bhagavad Gita and read. Because by reading these books, not only will one appreciate how the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, but also the books in themselves are like chanting God's name. Actually, these books are a description of God's nature, our nature in relationship to God, the nature of the material world, how are we relating to the material world. So, Srila Prabhupada, who came to the West in 1965 and started the movement in 1966, his mission was to teach everybody in the world in the West and also in India to perform the bhakti yoga, to perform the sacrifice intended for this age. And he wanted everybody to, he was very, very concerned that everybody bought his books. He was so concerned that we print, distribute, translate, and just make sure everybody get all these books. That even we don't understand how important he meant it was. Even we cannot fully understand, even I cannot fully understand, but I know then when I read these books or when I give these books to another person, I feel very happy inside. It's pleasure. It feels like God is very, very satisfied whenever I touch these books or I read them or I give it to somebody else. Like back in the 80s, I was out on the street selling these books when I was younger. And every time somebody bought a book, I could feel this, wow, this is so much pleasure. God is so satisfied. So the same thing when we read it. We feel God becomes so satisfied, we become so happy inside. And then we attain peace. Peace is very, very important. Which is, because without peace, inside there can be no happiness, as Krishna says in the next verse. Shall we read that too, just for the fun of it? Vihaya kaman yassaravan pumang charati nispriha nirmamo nirhankara sashanti madhigachiti. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, and who is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. Yes? So now here Krishna starts by saying, he who has given up desires for sense gratification. How can you do that? Everybody in this world wants pleasure. Everybody wants pleasure. Who here does not want pleasure? Nobody. Everybody wants pleasure. So the only problem is that we are looking for that pleasure in the wrong platform. That's all. And by giving up material pleasure and embracing the pleasure in Krishna consciousness by performing very strong and intense devotional service, we become so full of spiritual pleasure that it's easy to give up the desire for enjoying the senses. That is the trick. But the problem that we have in this material world is that our senses are so strong that before we can taste Krishna consciousness, and this happens every second for everybody, before we can taste Krishna consciousness, the senses are so strong and say, no, I want a piece of chocolate. No, I want to watch television. No, I want my iPad. No, I want sex. I want food. I want this, I want that. And then again we go. So this change from appreciating pleasure in Krishna consciousness towards or opposed to pleasure in material consciousness, that change, that is what takes time. To change our tendency from gravitating towards material pleasure towards pleasure in Krishna consciousness. And that change takes place by knowledge, by austerity, by renunciation, by practice of the Mahamantra chanting, and by doing various Krishna conscious activities. So our advice is that everybody tries to adopt as much as possible of the Krishna consciousness philosophy and practice at home. Chant the Mahamantra at home, study the Bhagavad Gita at home, maybe listen to the radio if you can hear it, if you're in Copenhagen. We're broadcasting from 9 every morning and from 4 every afternoon, basically. So, and then in this way, try to assimilate the knowledge of Krishna consciousness, understand that we're spirit soul, understand that we have to act for the pleasure of the Lord in order to be satisfied inside, understand that we're spiritual fishes who belong to the spiritual water, and that this material world is a foreign place for us. We don't belong here. We belong together with God. But that does not necessarily mean that we physically have to leave this universe in order to be with God. No, because God has mercifully come together with all